And in that consciousness of being blessed, we just joined in a moment of prayer together. We take a deep breath in and slowly release that breath. Just allowing ourselves to stay in that moment of being blessed by the rain, being blessed by the presence, being blessed by this moment to come together. Taking another breath in and slowly releasing. The breath brings us together, connects us mind, body, and spirit, and connects us one with another. Allows us to raise our awareness of the oneness that we are together collectively with everything in this universe. And we know we are. And we say, I am. And from this truth, we simply say thank you. Thank you for this time together. Thank you for this life that we live. Thank you for being an expression of God and the awareness of this truth. And so it is. Amen. Thank you all for being here. I'm just going to quickly show this schedule. This is where we've been and what we're doing today. So today we're covering the Universe Calling chapters 6, 7, and 8. So before we get started with all that, I'll stop and give everybody a chance to say hello. You can turn your mics off, and turn them on. I wish I could turn mine off with my dog and her squeaky toy in the background. I apologize for that. But she's a puppy, so that's the way she behaves.
Mandy.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
So some of you met Mandy. Some of you know Mandy. Mandy is the admin for Unity of the Hill Country. And we can just go around. Most everyone else, we've met one another before besides Mandy, but you can all say hello and where you're checking in from tonight. If you have anything you want to share, you can share what's on your heart. Bertie, you want to start?
Oh, sure. Hi, I'm
You're
Bertie.
in my top left corner of the Brady Bunch square. So.
I see. I'm Bertie checking in from Floresville. I work for Unity of San Antonio and Unity of Bernie and just serve all over the place. And I'm just so happy to see everybody.
Thank you for being here. Mandy, you want to say hello?
My name is Mandy. I live in Kerrville, Texas, and I work at Unity of the Hill Country as Beverly's administrative assistant. And I am so elated to be joining this book study as my first time.
Thank you, Mandy. And I guess I just assumed everybody knows I'm Beverly Pryor. I'm the minister at Unity of the Hill Country.
Yes, we know.
Hetty, you want to say hello? We're also talking to the recording audience for those who are catching up online. Hetty, you want to say hello?
Hello. Hello.
Anything more?
Hi.
No more. Hola, hola, hola. I'll say hello in Spanish. Hola, hola, hola.
Judith?
Hi, I'm Judith Morales from Brownsville, Texas. And actually, that song was such a special song because it reminded me of a Snelling seminar that I attended once. And I met a Jewish woman from New York, actually. And it started raining. And I remember that she commented that in her faith, every time it rained on a special day or a special occasion, it was a very special blessing. And that was the first time I had ever heard that. And it's one of those things that's just stuck with me forever. So every time it rains, and it's been raining here today, thank you, God, I always think, wow, what a special blessing.
Yeah, I agree. I always think it's very auspicious, especially when there's rain and then there's a rainbow. But even without the rainbow, the rain is wonderful, and you could just feel it in that song.
Yes, that's the first time I've heard that song, but it's very beautiful. So good selection.
Well, you must have been the one I selected it for, because I was listening to different songs, and then I'm like, I'm not sure why, but that works tonight. And so there you go. Just so
It did. At least for me, it did.
Yeah, it did for me. I enjoyed it. Thank you, Judith. Maria?
Yes, I'm Maria, and I'm from, actually I'm from San Antonio, but I attend Unity of Bernie, and I'm really happy to be here. I very excited about the study on prayer. I did get my book. Let me see. I'll show you. Yay!
Oh, you got one of the original covers or the older covers.
Yeah, I got it from Half Price Bookstore, and so I've kind of been reading through it, so that's good. And I'm just wanted to get a deeper perspective of prayer. I kind of told everybody before that I just kind of always done it just kind of like spiritually and just kind of go with the Spirit. And it's interesting to hear that the way he defines prayer is as God consciousness. So that's pretty neat. So I'm very excited.
And that's what you've been doing. So it's just, it's an affirmation of what you knew intuitively.
Mm.
So that's powerful. Rocio?
I said hola.
Oh, you okay?
To the Spanish-speaking people around me.
All right, I'm glad you're here. Jay?
Yes, I'm Jay Mulkey, pastor Unity of Bernie. Glad to be here at your class. Love seeing everyone.
Good, good. Well, as we mentioned earlier, we're covering 6, 7, and 8. It's so, I could read every page to you and just, it's every page of it's so good. But I tried to pull out specific quotes that maybe would stimulate discussion. So leave your mics on, and whenever you feel so compelled, speak up, because I can't, if you wave your hand, I won't be able to see you because all I can see is the screen. You might be able to see some faces, but the chapter 6 is relax, let go, and let God. And so he says, in the gesture, the words, the form, whatever else your prayers involve, and we know they could also involve dance or all sorts of frustrations, you are seeking to realize your wholeness, your transcendence. Prayer is not conditioning God to your needs, but conditioning your needs to the activity of God. Any thoughts on that? Conditioning your needs to the activity of God. So what that calls to my mind is, last time we met, remember, Maria, we had this discussion where he said, the need and the answer are one. And I think this is part of that same understanding.
Yes.
Conditioning our understanding, our awareness to that which is already there.
Yes, I did look that up, and I saw what it meant. So let's see. So what it was, when I read the sentence, that it goes in and explains about how one follows the other.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he considered it to be one, because it's like you have a certain need, the answer is there, so that's what, he explained. One follows the other, and in truth, then that is why we consider it to be one. The answer and the need are one.
So the answer, but he goes on to say the answer is already there.
Right.
And so we become aware of the need and the desire by the fact that we're somehow not in harmony with the answer that's already clear to us. So that's where I think this statement is really powerful, because he's saying it's not conditioning God to our needs. So it's not needs and then, the answer. It's conditioning the needs to the activity of God, which is already the answer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a couple of layers in on the same idea. So he says, God is a deeper dimension of yourself, expressing, and he says himself, but I sort of de-emphasize that, as you. God is a deeper dimension of yourself, expressing as you. We often think of God as something separate from us and not actually an activity of us, or God is an activity of us as we are an expression of God. It's all just like the answer and the need. There's really no separation. And let's see, I had something pulled out here I wanted to read, but let's see. Well, I think he says, I certainly do not accept oh no, that's back. I must have left that last little line on there, something to read. So he says, God can do no more for you than he can do through you. You've heard that before, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not unfamiliar. He goes on to say, still in chapter 6, it calls for a disciplined effort to let go of attachments to the past, to clear out the mind of the judgments, the pessimism, the self-pity, to renounce gripes, grudges, and grouches, to relinquish all hates and hurts, all false beliefs, and foolish fears, all ideas of lack and limitation. This is that first step. Now, a lot of times, a lot of this is part of who we are, right? We kind of have something cranky to say, or we have an idea that we're the scapegoat, or all of these gripes and grudges and grouches that sometimes become an element of our personality. We literally have to let all that go in order to get into this alignment, into this greater consciousness. It's a matter of understanding that that is not in alignment with who we are. It's not the challenges in life that bring us disharmony. It's how we respond to the challenges of life that bring us the disharmony. He says, many times, just in the process of letting go, we open the answering flow immediately, and the problem is solved or the condition is healed with no further prayer effort required. Now, I know someone has had an experience with that. Jay, you're nodding your head.
When you get in the flow, so to speak, and I have this kind of corny thing, but it works. You keep yourself prayed up in the good times, so that when the rough one comes, or let's say the challenges come, that you are accustomed to being in relationship with the presence, and it's just part of the flow of communication with you and spirit, instead of something where you step outside of a consciousness that you may not have embodied and say, I need, I want, I must. So I think antecedent to this is necessary, or it helps to be what I call prayed up. If you've got a better way of saying those, I'll take it, because prayed up almost sounds, hackneyed. So maybe in the flow, or on purpose, or in right relationship, however, but you know what I mean, right?
Well, you said practicing the presence, and I think that's what's important, is that you wake up in the morning and you bring your awareness to the presence, and you make your breakfast and you bring your awareness to the presence, and you get a phone call, and even though you might be uncomfortable with whatever's being said, you practice the presence. You bring your awareness to, okay, this is what it appears to be, but I know that I don't have to buy into or lean into or be affected by it. It's being a person of choosing as opposed to reacting,
Right.
acting out of the consciousness. It's not just praying from the consciousness, it's living from the consciousness.
I think he says prayer is more of a disposition than a position. And I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And he mentioned the term sequence and consequence as opposed to cause and effect. And I really like that, because cause and effect still sounds reactionary, and sequence and consequence just sounds mathematical. There's a sequence of actions that you take that lead to a particular likelihood of an outcome. And even if the outcome isn't what you expect, when you're in that God consciousness or that Christ consciousness, you immediately start looking for how it is good, instead of, oh, it's not how I expected it. It's like, oh, then there's something better. That's kind of how that consciousness shifts you to, that wasn't what I expected, but there has to be something even better in it for me, and it will manifest if I continue to remain open and I continue to be in the flow and choose the flow. Judith, do you have some thoughts?
Actually, I do. When you mentioned math, it took me in a whole different direction, and I like it. And math was never my greatest strength, but I did okay. But I love the concept, because I know the universe is mathematically ordered. And I like the concept that you mentioned of sequence and consequence, but I like even better, sequence leads to results. Because consequence still carries that sense of karma.
Yes, and that was from that chapter, so yeah.
Right, and therefore of punishment, because everybody thinks of karma as not just the good things, but the punishment. It was like, did I do something bad in another time?
I think
Not
people
to
use
mention
it
what
more
I might have done in this one, but
Yeah, I
but-
think people use it more frequently on the negative.
yeah,
The
exactly.
karma got you, or karma will get you. or
Yeah.
Karma's a bitch, people say.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. We've seen the same bumper stickers, haven't we?
Yes.
I actually thought of putting that on my car, but I didn't. I did have the thought, though. Who knows what consequence that had? But
Yeah, you don't want to claim that because
yeah, no. But I really do like the thought, the concept of sequence and results.
Mhm.
Because to me, that makes more sense. And it's also more palatable.
Yes.
It's more acceptable.
Yes. Well, and to me, having a business background, when I hear results, then that means accomplishment. So
Yes.
maybe even softer is as outcome, because outcomes
Yes.
don't necessarily mean an accomplishment. And, that's just,
No, it's the end result.
yeah.
The outcome is what happens after a sequence of events or a sequence of decisions, a sequence of whatever.
Yes. And we have a choice in the sequence,
That's the
at
good
every
thing.
point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Even
that's-
if we don't have a choice in the action in the sequence, we have a choice in our perception of what's happening.
And not only that, but not just the perception, but how we react in terms of what we do or do not do, because the perception can be just internal. But
Yes, and a perception can be, for that subconscious reactionary, where then we have to kind of even more so take a choice, right? It's like,
right.
I'm having a moment.
Let the
It's my
rain
moment.
fall.
It's my moment. I own it, but I'm feeling it. I think that's one of those. I was listening to so many different songs, and there was a Karen Drucker song, which it was like, no is my new yes. And it was all about finally saying no and not being a pleaser. But I was thinking about, I just totally lost my thought there when I started explaining too much about her song. But sometimes being a people pleaser is just so ingrained in us. We don't even realize how much we've lost choice in who we are and how we show up, and that we do have a whole myriad of answers and responses to everything. And it's not just always yes and put a smile on and be nice. Sometimes it's to do something other than that.
Yeah, to be totally unconventional.
Yes. And not be wrong for it. So let's see. So he says, many times in the process of letting go, we open the answering flow immediately, and the problem, I already read that, and the problem is solved or the condition is healed with no further prayer effort required. I thought I advanced. So that was chapter 6. So we went through that pretty good speed. We have 2 more chapters in the next half hour. So the way of silence, one thing that he brings up in this chapter is that he prefers the term silence to the term meditation, because he feels that meditation almost has too many Eastern connotations, and there have been so many people teaching different types of meditation, and there are people who say, this is how you meditate and this is not how you meditate. And so he really prefers that when we're thinking of meditation, we're really thinking of that moment where no matter what your process is to meditate, you're looking to come to the silence. He says this can only come through practicing the presence, as Jay said, or realization of oneness with the ever-present divine flow. So he says, and today we can never take for granted that we have disposed of the God out there perception and totally established ourselves in the presence. You know, anytime I meet someone and they refer to themselves as enlightened, I think unconsciously I just kind of click off, because if you think that somewhere you got to and you're there and you're done and forevermore, what he's saying here is, you know, you can't take for granted that you already put aside those old ideas of God. He even uses he and himself in terms like that. But it's a constant effort, not effort. That's not the right word. It's an intention, an ever-present intention. That's why we call it a practice, because we do our practices, whatever they may be, whether it's yoga or meditation or whatever. Practicing the present is the same sort of discipline. He says, God is not someone to pray to, but a depth of awareness to pray from. So this is the key to why we relax and let go and bring ourselves away from all the distractions into the presence through silence, because we can get to that depth of awareness. And once we're in that depth of awareness, that is where we pray from. He says, this is true self-awareness. This true self-awareness can only come through practicing the presence or the realization of oneness with the ever-present divine flow. That's what I just read for you. And so,
But this thing about enlightenment, it is a process as well. You know, it's not like this one experience and that's it and you know everything. You know, it's, I think I remember when I first discovered that, you know, because I thought I had this experience and, you know, it was like an opening up. And then throughout the years, I've had several experiences, and I don't think we're ever going to stop having experiences. And that's what caused this expansion. You know, there's always these shifts that you're going through. So,
and you can have another level of Satori. You know, you have that moment where you are open and you know that you have a new level of awareness from the consciousness in which you reside in that moment.
Yeah.
And then as you live in that consciousness and you live and move and have your being from that level of consciousness, then you allow yourself to have yet a deeper understanding.
Yeah.
That's why I always tell people, that's okay. I always tell people, you know, you can take a class and learn something, but you really learn it when you teach it.
Right.
Because then you're committing and you go for another, you know, it's that same thing of another level. Go ahead, Maria.
I was just going to say that physically we couldn't take it to be all of a sudden just to know everything and nothing and everything at the same time. Because sometimes it is like a state of nothingness. You know, you literally lose yourself into the whole universe in a sense. And so I think the way it's designed is because the way we are made and built physically on the physical level, you know, because we couldn't handle just getting everything all at once. It would just blow us away.
It takes an integration process. And I've dealt with people who have done drugs and had those sudden experiences. And then suddenly they're dealing with images and ideas. And I always keep coming back to, you're integrating. Just, you know, take a note of it, write it down, give yourself some time. But when they've rushed through that door, through a drug experience, and even the ceremonial ones, I've heard people having different experiences with ayahuasca and different things where the intention is to take you there. But if they haven't actually done the preparation, the spiritual preparation to get to that point, they can have a really bad experience. And I think, you know, and even afterward, you have to continue with that commitment. And I've had meditation experiences when I've been in long courses over multiple days where we're just doing nothing but meditating and going back into meditation, and you get a potty break and you go back into meditation. I've had experiences there where it was very much like what people describe as a psychedelic experience, because I've been meditating for 30 years in different ways. I love to experiment with different meditation styles or techniques. But in that moment, I was ready for it. It wasn't scary. It was like, wow, wow. And so it was amazing, but it wasn't drug related. So I can understand how someone who suddenly leaps over that cliff could be having some disenfranchisement of themselves. But I think that you're right about that, Maria. I mean, it's a process, and few people commit truly to it. I think people dabble, they have a little experience, they think they're done. We see this a lot of times in people who write a book from has a spiritual core to it. And they went to that place and they wrote this book, but they haven't maintained their discipline. So when the publisher asks them to write another book, then the next book is all from the head, and you can tell it when you read it. I won't name any names, but I could give you a few names of authors that I've read their second works and kind of gone, that's not coming from that same divine flow as the original work. And for all of us, it just takes that commitment and maintenance of that commitment. Practicing the presence, as Jay said. He says, in the absence of the meditation process that has been the missing key, it is the absence of the meditation process that has been the missing key to the power in the whole Judeo Christian concept of prayer. So what he's saying is coming into that consciousness and praying from that consciousness has not been the focus of what we've been taught primarily in Judeo Christian prayers. We've been taught prayers by rote. We've been taught begging and beseeching, that we have to be talking to someone outside of ourselves, but we're not coming from that deeper consciousness when we're praying in that way. So he suggests 3 basic steps or stages in what he calls the scientific prayer process. Relax and let go, turn inward to become one with the secret power, which is not a secret, it's the power that we all express, and then project this power with an affirmation or a treatment. So it's 3 steps. Relax and let go, which we do with a number of, I like to use breath. Breath always takes me there, but sometimes I'll use a chime, or I do a sound meditation with gong and bowls and things like that to help. Sound and vibration really help me to kind of drop in and let go. But whatever you need to do to get to that place, and then know that inward connection, and then the words you speak from that place are that activating power. And he talks about, he gives a little example on the same page about just imagine one of the old 19th century fire brigades when they have a bucket and they're all, one scoops the bucket and fills it and passes it down and someone throws it on. But if you're not filling your bucket at the front end, you have nothing to toss onto the fire. So I think that's a real good visual of, if you're not filling your bucket, if you're not connecting in with that consciousness, and I love also that illustration because water is good representation of consciousness, then your prayers are just empty. They have nothing, they're not putting any kind of energy out into the world that would manifest. And he says, God is seeking you. And again, I inserted a couple of words in here because God is seeking you is still that old separation language, like there's some God separate from you that's seeking you. You're never separate from God. I'm never separate from God. None of us are. So I changed it to God is seeking expression as you. Comments?
So that quote that you just used, and it has the word meditation in it. What page is that on? Do you know? Because when Jay was talking about, praying up, that's the word that came into my mind. It's a form of meditation, but you're meditating is trying to center yourself so that you become aware or more in tune with the, with God, or, that source that is within us, the God consciousness.
Yeah, so prayer doesn't, you can go into the silence. That's why he uses the word silence and prefers it over meditation. That quote is probably somewhere around page 76. And since you and I have the same book, but
Yeah.
it's 76 if you have this version of it.
Yeah.
It'll be somewhere around in there where he's talking about that.
Okay.
But
Here it is. Yeah, you're right. It's on 76, the bottom page. Yeah, so I was wondering if he was going to use that term, because different people use different terms for different things.
That's why it is meditation, but in unity, prayer is also meditation. So you can meditate simply to go into that experience of the consciousness. So in the morning, I usually read something that has inspiration to it in the morning. And of course, during these days, I have 5 different things that I've blended in. I read from 5 different sources because they each one brings something else. And I spend as much time as it takes, but I sit outside and I listen to the birds and I'm in that consciousness. But that's just my time to connect and to know.
Right.
It's not necessarily a prayer time. But what he's saying is it's one and the same. So if you have a list of concerns for yourself or for another, then go into that connection first before you use your words and your thoughts. So establish yourself in that presence in order to come from that consciousness before you pray. So that might be, as a chaplain, you might feel like you're connected. If you hold hands with someone, which probably isn't a good idea right now, but that might be the point at which you feel you're giving them your attention. Or for someone who does energy work, they might put their palms together, but then when they open their palms, that's when they feel that vibration, that connection, or you might put your hand on your chest. However it works that you entrain yourself when you are in that consciousness, go into that consciousness before you start your affirmations. That's the point that he's making, that it's about the silence and the awareness that it comes through what we call meditation. He says,
you mentioned meditating with birds.
Yes.
That's another technique. In my church, I'm lucky enough to have a place with animals about a quarter mile away. And before church on Sunday mornings, I say time with animals is never wasted. But it's spent with animals is never wasted. But I also get a consciousness of love in the moments before church that I can go in and it hits me when I see the animals and the pastoral scene or the meadow or whatever. That's a technique to bring forth the love in me. Maybe that's a cumbersome way of putting it, but really, I think it's letting go of lesser so you can get greater. And what puts you into that position, I'm for it.
And as a minister, that's our responsibility, right? We should never get up and speak in front of a crowd of people unless we're in that place. Right. And I know that's why Mandy's so important to me, because on Sunday mornings, it's like run interference, make sure so that if someone comes to me with a complaint on Sunday morning and I feel like this, then I've got to go and shift. I've got to go play my bowl or do so, or breathe, or whatever it takes. And even sometimes people have caught me as I'm coming in after I've done all that, and then before I sit down. And luckily, when we do our Alleluia after the meditation, I'm working on it before I lead the meditation, because I'm participating in the meditation. So I want to come from that as I lead it. But then after the Alleluia, I know I'm there. You know, it's like, I've got to drop into that place before I begin to speak. And I do that here, wherever I am, when I'm speaking remotely. You know, it's still that same process. I mentioned on Sunday when I came down here for my interviews, every time we met with the staff or team leaders or the board or whatever, of course, I would be asked to pray. And someone asked me, why do you do that thing before you start your prayers? And I'm like, what thing? And they said, well, you pause. And I said, oh, I didn't realize I was pausing, but yes, it's to make sure that before I speak, I'm feeling it. I'm connected with, I'm not just praying words, I'm praying from that consciousness. So that it's all of us. If we want to have effective prayers, that's our responsibility, and it's our authority. We were given dominion. It is our authority to be able to speak words into form. It wasn't just Jesus, you know, he said these things and even more. So he taught us how to do this. And unfortunately, it's been, you know, sort of, as he said, the missing key to the power in the Judeo Christian concept of prayer. He says, when you let go and become open and receptive, the divine flow springs forth readily. And I know that Maria has described this when she's been praying as a chaplain. I know, I can't recall the lady's name that's part of your Power of 8 group, Judith, who was talking about how she felt that we all have felt it at times, consciously or just out of a desire to be of service. But it's alive in us and right there. Anybody have a comment?
No,
Oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I totally agree with you, Beverly. I have to sometimes sneak into the hospital, Reverend Beverly, in order to get my centering time in. Like, I won't even go to the office. I'll have my backpack and my purse. And it's so funny that the best place to hide in a hospital is the chapel.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, but I'll go in there before, you know, before I even clock in sometimes, because I don't want somebody to catch me. So I have that time to get centered, you know, and at least spend a good 10 minutes in there in the silence with the prayer requests and everything like that. And I love how you pointed out, it's not a good idea to hold somebody's hand in this day and age of prayer, you know, unless you have gloves on, but not everybody's in the hospital with gloves on. But this posture of prayer is something I've taken up a whole lot. People find reassuring, and other faith traditions use it. So I've kind of snagged it for now. And I have found that it feels very natural for me and seems very reassuring to other people.
Yeah, and you'll find, you know, ways that work for you, you know. It's, I think that's really important that you know that about yourself, and you take that time. It's a commitment that you make to be there and choose to do that. But I love this quote: you are potentially the greatest concentration of energy in the world. Through the projection of this energy, which is precisely what prayer is about, you become God in action. And that is just something to drink in and know this is truth. It's truth. It's not just truth about people in this class tonight. It's true about everybody. But when you do understand that you can connect yourself with divine flow everybody has a command to a degree of the presence, but the more your awareness is connected, the more aware you are, the more powerful. So the final chapter is affirmation and treatment. And I'll go through these quotes fairly quick because we are running out of time, but if you have the book, he really gives some recommendations on different ways to get to the affirmations. Probably most people on this call are accustomed to writing their own affirmations, but he says, God doesn't have substance, God is substance. God doesn't have life, God is life. And as Jay knows, he's teaching this on Wednesday nights, God doesn't love us, God is the love that we feel in this world. So he says also, the need is not to pray for things, but to become a channel for the release of that cosmic energy that takes form as things. So we don't need to pray to reach out and have something, whether it's health or wealth or relationships. We need to pray from that consciousness to release that cosmic energy that takes form as the thing we desire. So our desire in our heart might be love, but we have that desire for love. It's not a great idea to attach it to a particular form. Let the form outwork in our life so we can see how love unfolds. The same thing with prosperity. It forms through the substance that we know as God. It's not even mystical or magical once you understand it's mathematical. It just is the way it works. So claim your good and become a positive channel for its release. That's what he says. And the way you do that is through affirmation. Prayer is not conquering God's reluctance. It's synchronizing ourselves in consciousness with the cosmic flow, which is God's eternal willingness. And again, that's a human term, willingness. That's he's trying his best, and I love Eric Butterworth, but I think there's a limitation in this wording of God's eternal willingness. And we'll look at it this way. God's mind is the great affirmation. There is no negative in God. God never says never. God always says yes. That's why I was saying the word willingness kind of sounds like, oh, because I know when I'm willing, that usually means I have some resistance, but there's no resistance in God. There's only love, there's only affirmation, there's only prosperity and absolute good. Any contributions?
Yeah, Beverly, I like to say that God is an infinite sphere, the center of which is everywhere, and the circumference nowhere.
Yes, I think that was Desjardins originally, and it's been attributed, well, Eric Butterworth has used it, and it also often gets attributed to him too.
I like
But yes, I used that actually a lot of times in my guided meditation that I take people on before my sound journey, because I think it helps people to understand that there is no center, or well, the center is everywhere and the circumference is nowhere. I mean, it's conceptual until in your life it becomes experiential. Any other comments? Okay. The next quote, also from chapter 8, the line is pretty fine between, it should say, between positive thinking and affirmative prayer treatment. Actually, what you think about anything at any time is a treatment of that thing. Pretty heavy stuff. Anything, what you think about, what you think, what you put your focus on about anything at any time is a treatment of that thing. So in these days where people are torn and focusing on the lack of a vaccine or the lack of whatever, I mean, that's a treatment. Whenever we put our focus and our energy on something, because we are an expression of God, we are the dynamic energy of God in the world, then everything we think about, and especially when we begin to speak, and most effectively when we start having emotion toward it. The emotion is the energy and the amplifier that puts it out into the world. So you might have a thought that doesn't have a lot of energy around it, and you might even have a comment that's offhanded. But even watch those comments, because you're dropping it out there, and it could create a ripple effect because someone else might have an emotional reaction to it. So you've put it out there thinking, I don't really mean that. I'm just going to say it. I have a friend that does that all the time, puts things on Facebook that are just meant to stoke irritation in people. And, you know, I feel very disappointed when I see that. Because they don't really understand the effect they're having. And to my question is always to this person, why would you want to do that? So the problem in your experience evidences the problem. In your experience evidences that in some way you have been blocking the flow. So when you have a problem, the problem in your experience is the evidence that you need to know you're blocking your flow in that particular area of your life. It's not blame. I know people have over the years said, oh, you're blaming us for our financial problems, or you're blaming us because of this. It's not true. But when you look at the evidence in your life, that will tell you where you're blocking your flow. Are you withholding love? It could be if you don't have love in your life. Are you judging, you know, whatever it is that you feel is not going the way that you ideally would like it to. She says it's your responsibility to choose the level of consciousness on which you deal with the everyday experiences of your life. It's your responsibility to choose the level of consciousness on which you deal with the everyday experiences of your life. I think that's what a lot of people get a little bit frustrated. They don't want to be responsible. We're in such a, there's
Blaming.
so much race consciousness of blame. And I'm sorry, were you going to say something? Who is that, Rocio?
The blame, I was kind of thinking what you were going to say.
Yeah, and I think that's not
somebody else.
Yeah, and I think that comes from that survival part of our brain, that reptilian brain. You know, we've got to look for the problem and somebody's responsible, and but that gets us nowhere. It just keeps us going down the drain. But it's acceptable, you know, because one person starts and the other one jumps on, and it becomes sort of an acceptable cultural thing for us to do when it gets us nowhere, and it creates nothing but more negative results. So that was my last quote of the evening. Thank you all for being here. And we actually did not go over this week.
Well, you said a mouthful. That's just like your last comments that you were making. That is really, you know, everybody should hear that message. Everyone should hear that message, because I don't think a lot of times we're just not aware of that. We don't.
Tell me what you
we don't
heard.
know the implications of our words and even our emotions and the way we come across, and you know, the way we turn around and blame the other person and everything. Yeah, that would be a good message for the world to hear.
Well, and it takes responsibility, right? I mean, if we have
Yes.
a moment, we're going to have moments, right? We're human. And that's just the thing, is is sometimes people think, oh, well, you're a minister, so you shouldn't have a moment. You shouldn't, you know, feel frustrated. That's not true. I'm a human being and I have a moment sometimes.
Yeah.
But the key is taking responsibility for my moment
Yeah.
and not making it about anyone else.
And you know, if you are in the prayer ministry, to know what you just said, that is so relevant and so key to whether you're going to be an effective, you know, prayer minister, or, you know, being on a prayer group or whatever. If you allow yourself to start being negative and so forth, your prayers are not going to amount to much. You know, it's like you're nullifying, and I mean, you might as well not, you know, it's not going to work. It's not going to, you're not going to be in line with that source to be able to manifest the answer.
I'm going to play
prayer.
devil's advocate for a moment, friends. I do think it's important to pay attention to negative feelings. They have important messages for us, and not spiritually bypass. So
Right.
we have to take responsibility for them and shift into that positive, but let's not go so quickly. Let's make
I don't think that,
an inventory.
And I don't think you're
Because I get
saying,
nervous about that. I
No,
say
no,
that
I
because I've
wasn't-
done
I
it to
wasn't saying that
myself
at
and
all.
had terrible consequences to my health and well-being.
no, I agree.
Yeah.
100%. Thank you
You
for
know?
saying that,
Yeah.
because that's not
Yeah.
what I was saying, and I didn't hear that in what Maria was saying.
No, I
So
was.
thank you for
I know
bringing.
what you're saying, Bertie. I know what you're saying. In fact, it's all about observing. Like when you're interacting with other people or anyone, and when you're seeing what's going on out there, you know, you're observing this, but you're also observing what's going on here on the inside of you. And so, yeah, it's about observing it. You learn a lot from watching and hearing the negative, because then you get to see the truth of things. You know, you
If it's
get to
your
see
own negative, if
what's
you,
going on.
yeah,
Yeah.
and your own negative feelings, as Bertie was saying, that's telling you something
Mm-hmm.
about some subconscious message you have, or something you didn't release, something you haven't let go of, whatever it is.
Right.
But I just want to add to what you're saying about negativity. It's not just negativity that shuts us down. Apathy, habitual behavior. You could pray every day, but if you're just getting up and, you know, you're not really getting yourself into the presence. If you're saying, okay, I'm going to do my prayers today, I have a list of 12 names, let me just do them real quick, I'm going to run through them so I can get on with my day. What are you doing? You're wasting your time, you know, because you're not activating the presence.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just negativity. Negativity, I don't think that's a bad thing. You know, just, I think we have moments and they're telling. It's the blame and the shame and the other things we apply to the negative feelings that bring us down. And I think a lot of 12-step programs do a really good job of helping people to move past those feelings. But we all experience them. And of course, girls in the South are taught they're supposed to smile and always be pleasant and pleasers, and, you know, not in any way make anyone uncomfortable, and don't speak your mind by any, you know, stretch of the imagination. And so that's always been a challenge in my life.
Yeah. So can I just add?
I'm a pleaser, but I will speak my mind. And then I get shamed for it a lot.
I know we don't want to go over, but can I just ask Bertie, did we hear what you were trying to say?
I think so. I mean, I don't want to go into too many details, but at one point in my life, you know, I was dealing with some terrible back pain, and I really worked on my spirituality and really didn't pay attention to the physical of it. I could have gone to a doctor at some point, and it took both to do it. And I have an incredible pain tolerance now that I have to really pay attention to. So I am real careful. So I get nervous when I hear in a class, don't stay in the negative, move real fast. There's important messages in pain and discomfort. And the reason why I talk about it is because oops, I screwed up. You know, I just kind of, you know, and I don't want anybody to go through what I went through. You know?
But we
And
will.
sometimes, you know, yeah,
We
that's
all
true.
will.
Yeah.
So you-
Some of the ways
so
we
you
write
felt
things
you
in
went
these books,
through
it's
it
like,
because you were
fix it like
ignoring
that.
it?
Huh?
Is that what you're saying? You felt that you made it worse because you were ignoring it? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
I think I tolerated the pain a whole lot better because I did a whole spiritual, you know, life is a balance. There's the physical,
Yeah.
there's the emotional, and there's the spiritual. And I went all spiritual on this particular problem and didn't really take a balanced approach in life. And wound up pretty sick for a long time. And who knew just relying on things 100% spiritually, you think that's going to heal you. And so this was kind of a crazy thing that happened to this Unity person, right? So I learned from that to take a balanced approach to life. You know, and I'm still working on it. Still working on
And
it.
you brought this gift. See, now you have this message to share. So there was nothing sideways in your experience. Your experience gave you clarity, which you now can share with other people. And I encourage you to share that as much as you can. And every opportunity you have, don't feel like it doesn't fit in or whatever, because I think that's universal. I think that message of balance is the key to everything. And it does manifest spiritually, physically, emotionally, whatever the balance. You know, if we don't exercise, it's going to affect us spiritually. If we're not spiritual, it's going to affect us physically. If we're not really watching our mental focus, it's going to affect us physically and spiritually. So we're not compartmentalized at all. I mean, we're one with another, but we're also one with all the multiple dimensions in which we live. So thank you for that clarity.
Hey, you're welcome. It's just sometimes when I read Unity stuff, it's like, sounds like it's going to happen that quick. You know?
Yeah, and I think
it's a
Yeah.
process.
yeah, I think that's the drawback, you know, even that quote that he had about positive thinking and affirmative prayer. I mean, he was saying maybe that's all you need is to shift, let go of something, and then that's going to be the answer. And sometimes it is. And sometimes it's more because, you know, I mean, I've had a lot of different things. I got to go another layer or something comes up and I'm like, didn't I deal with that 10 years ago? So,
Yeah.
what else?
Well, I think an important thing to add to the letting go aspect is what you've just said is a critical part of it in terms of it may not be just that one thing. There can be multiple layers underneath whatever it is we are able to identify. But the other aspect of it is it's not just letting it go. It really is about understanding as much of it as we can and forgiving. Because without the forgiveness, it doesn't matter what you say you're letting go. I got news for you. It's not gone. And it's going to keep rearing its ugly head again and again and again until it's actually dealt with. And that's why when we're experiencing the negative things, no, you just cannot shove them aside because all kinds of really negative things are going to be surface in our world. You need to deal with them as best you can from a spiritual perspective, then move on. But it's also important is when you're in that mode and you recognize the negatives are just overcoming you, it's foolish to try to embark on some kind of spiritual quest, for example, a presentation or a prayer group or whatever. It's like you can't go into it from that place because what Maria is saying is true. It doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And you're contaminating everything else around you because remember, your thoughts are impacting everything. And I'm not saying that to you specifically. Yeah. I'm certainly saying it to myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so interesting because sometimes words are so inadequate as a way to communicate and exchange certain ideas, but what the idea of God consciousness, to be able to sit in the seat of God consciousness and to be there at that point. Like, you know, there's to get there. It doesn't, I don't think it has to do with what's happening on the outside physically, but it's more to do with what's happening on the inside with your thoughts, you know, and I guess your emotions as well. But it's a interesting phenomena. What's the word?
A term that I like to go along with the God consciousness or the consciousness of God is to look at whatever it is through the eyes of God.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
That helps me a lot. It helps me readjust.
The idea that if we don't blame, we don't have to forgive. So
Yeah,
we live in
that's-
the grace of the moment, moment by moment, then there is nothing to forgive. And then the old saying from the movie, love means never having to say you're sorry, takes on a whole different meaning. You don't have to anything to forgive because you never blame. But I guess that's a subject for a whole other.
That's a very long discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
and we've run a little bit over, but I like the dynamics of this last few minutes. So thank you everyone for hanging on. And
Deep
if we just
I
all
said
take a
deep
breath. I'm sorry,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I said deep stuff.
Yeah.
Very
good,
deep.
Deep stuff, good stuff. But if we'll just together take a deep breath in and just let that breath go, and just all of us either speak out loud or just in your heart, just a big old thank you.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Namaste.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you, Beverly. Reverend Beverly. Wonderful class.
It was, thank you. Thank you all
Thank
for
you,
your
guys.
contributions.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Good
Yeah,
night.
have a good evening.
Good night.
Bye.